of
through there, but
yeah.
when we came in from Michigan here,
Oh,
it did not it didn't take me that long to adjust to the nice warm space here.
yeah.
It was like, why haven't I done this sooner? I just didn't
Okay,
understand.
sorry to interrupt everyone, but we are live at a few minutes after the hour, so I apologize for the technical glitches there. This is Reverend Dr. Stephen J. Kosmina coming at you live this Sunday morning, July 14th. Welcome in everyone that's joining us here on Zoom. We got a pretty full house. And those of you looking in on social media, on Facebook, on YouTube, and in other ministries across the country, welcome in. Thank you for being here on this Sunday. Danae, are you prepared for today's daily word today, or do I need to do that? You got it?
I sure am.
Okie dokie. What we're going to do is we're going to get started right off the bat today with Reverend Danae coming out, sharing today's daily word. Come on out today and share.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Sunday, July 14th, 2024. And the word of the day is divine order. During times of uncertainty, I trust divine order. How often have I felt disappointed when something did not work out as I had planned or hoped, only to discover a blessing I had not anticipated? Understanding that a seeming obstacle may actually be an unrecognized opportunity, I resist the temptation to wonder why the setback is happening. Instead, I pray, asking, what is mine to do? I may receive guidance to wait for a better time to pursue my plan, or perhaps an insight will arise out of what happened, what appeared to be a failure, showing me a way forward that will accomplish even greater good. Affirming divine order keeps me patient and trusting and right outcomes in all situations. And from scripture, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12, it reads, "For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known." Amen.
Amen. And I believe I used that scripture last week, didn't I? All right, now let's get a thumbs up. I had to do some microphone adjusting. Can everybody give me a thumbs up that's here on Zoom with me if you can hear me loud and clear? All right, great. Thanks a lot. All right, let's dive right in. This month, we're looking at celebrating. I thought I'd put a little bit of that summertime sailboat theme in there. Celebrating life by, we're pulling up anchor and letting God take the rudder, take the wheel, whatever you want to call it, as we examine how to successfully navigate through life, no matter what the conditions of the sea. Navigating the human experience, I like to say. There is something that we all have, that we all use, something that every single day can either hold us back from our ability to navigate or can give us great assistance. And no, I am not talking about Google Maps or Siri. What I'm talking about, it's our mind. Our mind. Ram Dass, who was a modern day spiritual leader, once wrote, "We are all prisoners of our minds." This realization is the first step on the journey to freedom. And so I want to make a pretty bold statement about that this morning right up front. If your mind is out of control, then your life is out of control. If your mind is out of control, then you simply cannot be letting God take the rudder, take the wheel, so to speak. And no successful navigation can possibly occur. It's as simple as that. Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud's premier student in the field of psychoanalysis, often told this story of the power of mind that is calm and serene. He tells the story of a village that had been experiencing drought for 5 consecutive years. Many rainmakers had been called in, but they had failed to make it rain. In the villagers' last attempt, they called upon a renowned rainmaker from afar. When he arrived in the village, he set up his tent and he disappeared inside for 4 days. On the 5th day, the rain started to fall and quenched the thirst of the parched earth. The people of the village asked the rainmaker how he had accomplished such a miracle. The rainmaker replied, "I have done nothing." Astounded at this explanation, the villagers said, "How can that be? After you came 4 days later, the rain started." The rainmaker explained, "When I arrived, the first thing I noticed was that everything in your village was out of harmony with heaven. So I spent 4 days putting my mind into harmony with the divine. Then the rains came." If your mind is out of control, if your mind is out of harmony with the divine, then your life is out of control. If this is the case, what can you do? How can you calm the internal sea of your mind? I picked up this book again. You can't really see it on here because of the way the screen washes out everything white, but this book is Essential Spirituality. I spoke from it several times several years ago. It's actually titled Essential Spirituality, Exercises from the World's Religions to Cultivate Kindness, Love, Joy, Peace, Vision, Wisdom, and Generosity by Roger Walsh. He's a medical doctor and a PhD. And it's based on over 20 years of research and spiritual practice. It's a groundbreaking and life-changing book. I pick it up often. In his decades of study, Dr. Walsh has discovered that each of the great spiritual traditions have 2 things in common. First and most importantly, they all have a common goal, the goal of recognizing the sacred and divine that exists both within and around us. And second, they share common practices, according to Walsh, a number of common practices to reach that goal. Notice the word practices. This word is important. 2,500 years ago, one of the holiest of the holy, the Buddha said, "However many holy words you read, however many you speak, what good will they do you if you do not act upon them?" Today, I share one of those common practices, and you may want to read about some of the rest. Pick up that book. This morning, I want to share with you the practice of calming the internal sea, the practice of controlling that out of control mind that is common to all great spiritual traditions. But before I do that, here's a practice that differs slightly from religion to religion. And what is that practice? It's the practice of changing a light bulb. As we ask the deeply spiritual and highly philosophical question, how many church members does it take to change a light bulb? Well, if you are a Roman Catholic, as I was brought up to be, the answer is none. Come on, we all know they use candles. If you are Pentecostal, the answer is 10. 1 to change the light bulb and 9 to pray against the spirit of darkness. If you are Presbyterian, the answer is none. God has predestined when the lights will be on and off, and we are not to interfere. If you are a Baptist, the answer is at least 15. 1 to change the light bulb and 2 or 3 committees to approve the change. Oh, and 1 person to provide a casserole. If you are Methodist, the answer is, well, see Baptists. If you are Lutheran, the answer is none. Lutherans don't believe in change. Sorry about that, Lutherans. If you are Mormon, the answer is 5. One man to change the bulb and the 4 wives to tell him how to do it. Right. And finally, the following was prepared by a New Thought minister in response to the question, how many of our church members does it take to change a light bulb? A New Thought minister says, we choose not to make a statement either in favor of or against the need for a light bulb. However, if in your own journey you have found that light bulbs work for you, that is fine. You are invited to meditate upon and journal about your personal relationship with your light bulb and share it next month at our annual Light Bulb Sunday service, in which we will explore a number of light bulb traditions, including incandescent, fluorescent, three-way, long life, and tinted, all of which we believe are equally valid paths to luminescence. All right, that's an equal opportunity joke, poking fun at us all. But seriously, Chung Tzu, Taoist sage, once said, control the mind, attain one-pointedness, then the harmony of heaven will come down and dwell in you. You will be radiant with life. You will rest in Tao. That's in the book. The Buddha said, may you develop mental concentration, for whosoever is mentally concentrated sees things according to reality. That sounds wonderful, important. There's just one problem. Our minds are restless creatures, always on the move. They wander ceaselessly, jumping from past memories to future fantasies, constantly plotting and planning and scheming, pursuing pleasures and fleeing fears. While driving down the road, we plan our day, refight yesterday's argument, refight this morning's argument, perhaps, worry about our finances and listen to the radio, do all sorts of things. No wonder so many people feel frazzled during the day and exhausted by the end of it. Even more remarkable than the perpetual agitation of our minds is the fact that we recognize only a fraction of this frenzy. In the book, Dr. Walsh writes, the recognition of just how extraordinarily out of control our minds are was one of the greatest shocks of my life. No training in medicine, neuroscience, or psychology had given me more than a hint of it. I was utterly unprepared for the realization of the extent of the mind's wanderlust that my first silent retreat revealed. Each hour, I would sit down to determined, I should say, to remain alert and aware and to focus on the sensation of the breath. Yet within seconds, my attention would zoom off into pleasant memories or fearful fantasies, and all thoughts of the breath, or even that I was meant to be focusing on it, was forgotten. Time and time again, I would awaken from my fantasies and vow that this time I would really focus on my breath. And yet seconds later, both breath and vow would be forgotten. It was a humbling experience. And afterward, I wrote, I was forced to recognize that what I had formerly believed to be my rational mind, preoccupied with planning and problem solving, actually comprised a frantic torrent of forceful, demanding, loud, and often unrelated thoughts and fantasies. It became clear that I had little more than the faintest inkling of self-control of either thoughts or feelings. That's from the author. So don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. We all deal with this. And remember, though, what I said earlier. If your mind, our mind, my mind, your mind, anyone's mind is out of control, then chances are your life is out of control. If your mind is out of control, you are not experiencing, nor are you going to experience successful navigation of the waters of life. So, how is your level of one-pointedness? You can get a taste of it in just a couple of minutes by doing the following brief experiment with me. Now, we won't spend a lot of time with this. And if you would like to do a mindfulness meditation, I'm going to do one right at the end of this talk. So that will be our meditation time today. But here's a simple one that you can do right now. We won't spend 1 or 2 minutes on it, but you'll get the idea. And if you want to do this when we are off the air, you can do just that. But I invite you right now, if you'd like, if it's safe for you to do so, just to close your eyes and to visualize a white ring with a white dot in the middle on a black background. So you're visualizing a white ring in a black background with a white dot in the middle of that ring. Now try to focus your attention undistractedly on the images and to keep it clear and steady in your mind for 1 to 2 minutes. White ring on a black background with a white dot in the middle. Just keep it there. I encourage you to work this when you set aside some time to do this. It's astonishing to find how dramatically the image shifts and changes despite our best effort to hold it steady. I know some of you are still working with that, but not only does the image change, but our attention wanders. It wanders away to passing thoughts and fantasies. Buddhists have long compared the mind, lurching from thought to a crazy monkey leaping erratically from branch to branch. Or how about this description found in The World's Religions by Houston Smith? He says, the motions of the average mind, says the Hindus, are about as orderly as those of a crazed monkey cavorting about its cage. Nay, more, like the prancings of a drunk, crazed monkey. Even so, we have not conveyed its restlessness. The mind is like a drunken, crazed monkey that has St. Vitus dance. St. Vitus dance was a word for a disease, that bunch of jerking motions. He continues, to do justice to our theme, however, we must go a final step. He says, the mind is like a drunken, crazed monkey with St. Vitus dance who has just been stung by a wasp. How long can the average mind think about one thing only, without slipping first into thinking about that thing and taking off from there on a senseless chain of irrelevancies? About 3.5 seconds, psychologists tell us. Like a ping pong ball, the mind will alight where its owner directs it, but only to take off immediately on a jittery flight of staccato bounces that are completely out of hand. What if the mind could be turned from a ping pong ball into a lump of dough, which when thrown sticks to a wall until deliberately removed? Would not its power increase if it could be thus held in focus? Would not its strength be compounded like the strength of a light bulb when ringed by reflectors? This is the aim of concentration. When all the senses are stilled, when the mind is at rest, when the intellect wavers not, that, say the wise, is the highest state. End quote. Wow. When a student once asked Ramana Maharshi, one of the 20th century's greatest Hindu sages, what stands in the way of my knowing myself or God, he shot back, your wandering mind. No hesitation. So in our busy lives, with our challenges, our activities, how do we focus our wandering minds? How do we concentrate? How do we calm the internal sea? Here's a few simple exercises that Dr. Walsh recommends in his book. Of course, the practice of meditation is a form of calming the internal sea that every spiritual tradition promotes. But how about this? How about transforming daily activities into sacred rituals? By deciding to use daily activities for spiritual awakening. Seemingly insignificant routines can become sacred rituals dedicated to developing calm and concentration. To begin, just select a particular activity, such as opening a door, and commit to doing it with as much awareness as possible. Thus, during the day, you will no longer hurl doors open and barge through them mindlessly. Rather, you might stop before each door, each one, long enough just to take a deep breath. Reach carefully for the door handle, feel it touch on your hand, turn it and open it gently. Then step through the door and gently close the door behind you. Doing this all mindfully. For the trivial cost of a few seconds, you have calmed yourself, brought your intention into the present moment, and transformed a mindless routine into a sacred ritual. Same thing when you get in your car. Instead of jumping into the car and roaring off with the radio blaring, try the following. Leave a few minutes early so you won't feel hurried. Seat yourself behind the steering wheel and take 3 slow, deep breaths. Remind yourself that you want to use this ride as part of your spiritual practice. Then drive calmly and mindfully, enjoying the scenery and the knowledge that the ride is contributing to your awakening. Transform telephone calls into wake-up calls. A normal day is filled with numerous interruptions and minor irritations. Often do we answer the phone automatically and semi-consciously when the telephone rings. Letting the telephone ring slightly longer while taking a deep breath allows you to be fully present to the conversation or to the telemarketer. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Vietnamese monk who was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize for his remarkable peace work. At his center in France, the staff takes 2 breaths before picking up the telephone. When you call the center, there's a slight pause, and then you are speaking with someone offering you their full attention and calm, clear awareness. If you decide the telephone will be your spiritual alarm and take a deep breath before answering, like the people in Thich Nhat Hanh's monastery, it might be helpful to just put a little note to yourself on the phone to serve as a reminder so you don't go into automatic pilot. Today, and I did this practice yesterday. I knew I was going to be talking about this. She didn't know yet what the talk was about. And we strive not to go off the island here in Northwest Florida. We live on the island, Okaloosa Island. But we did run out for an errand, and we saw miles and miles of backup on the way that we would be facing on the way back. So we did hold on, I got to let someone in here. We did an alternate route on the way back, bypassed miles and miles of traffic, but yet we were still going to be sitting in some. So we said, let's practice what we preach again and do some mindfulness, noticing zeros and O's and how they represent oneness and omnipresence in our experience. We found a whole bunch of them in the car and outside the car. And before we knew it, calmly, without me getting irritated with the traffic as I normally would, we calmly got to the place where we were going to turn, and we did that. So how about this before picking up the phone? Say you use that as your practice. How about saying, I am calm, poised, and at peace with the world. I am calm, poised, and at peace with the world. With simple exercises like these, it soon becomes apparent that any normal activity can be transformed into a sacred ritual and a moment of awakening. This is mindfulness. As Jewish wisdom emphasizes, any natural act, if hallowed, leads to God. Hallowed, that which is regarded as holy and sacred. Those who devote acts such as these to awakening to the present moment may relate to this little story, the words of Brother Lawrence, who was a simple 17th century French monk whose writings about using daily activities as spiritual practices has inspired millions of readers. Now, we know very little about his life except that he entered the monastery after years spent as a foot soldier. He was a foot soldier. He described himself as a clumsy fellow who used to break everything. And apparently his supervisors, his superiors agreed. Clumsy and seemingly untalented, he was exiled to the monastery kitchen to wash pots and pans. But Brother Lawrence did not regard his job as a distraction from his spiritual life or as something to be finished quickly so he could get on with his prayers and devotions. Instead, he decided to use washing every pot and pan and every other activity as an opportunity for remembering God, and constantly brought his attention back to this focus. After several years, the results of his practice became so evident that even the abbot of the monastery went to him for advice. And Brother Lawrence was able to make this remarkable statement. He said, "This time of busyness does not, with me, differ from the time of prayer. And in the noise and clutter of my kitchen, while several people are at the same time calling for different things, I possess God in as great tranquility as if I were upon my knees at the Blessed Sacrament." Contemplation and meditation are skills. As with any skill, it takes time to master. For most people, the benefits develop slowly but build over time. The first days, weeks, months of practice may feel neither deep nor rewarding. So when starting, it is helpful to make a commitment to continue for a specific period of time. And sticking to that commitment takes a word that some of us aren't too crazy about, but it's appropriate here. And that word is discipline. Discipline was once defined as carrying out a resolution long after the mood has left. So a great paradox of this work is that when we least want to do it is when we probably could benefit from it the most. So wrapping things up, Roger Walsh writes at the conclusion of this particular chapter I'm talking about today that the concentrated mind is not only calm, but also clear. Just as still water becomes lucid and mirror-like, so too a calm, clear mind accurately reflects the world. Chung Tzu wrote, "When water is still, it is like a mirror. And if water thus derives lucidity from stillness, how much more the faculties of the mind? The mind of the sage in repose becomes the mirror of the universe." A calm mind offers a clear mirror with which to look out at the world and in at ourselves. A calm internal sea gives us spiritual freedom, the freedom to experience the presence and the power of the divine in our lives, the freedom to manifest a life filled with joy, love, health, abundance, wisdom, and peace. One last practice from Thich Nhat Hanh. It's a breath break. Say as you breathe, breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. How freeing is it to experience this? I would say it's something to celebrate. And so it is. Now, I'd like to do, if you would like to stay with me, whether it's on social media, I know I've gone my normal time here, but I'm going to do a mindfulness exercise here. So it's a mindfulness meditation. If you do have to get onto something else, I understand that, and you are free to leave without judgment. This is only a couple minutes, actually, but it'll help us to continue in this mindfulness place. If you recall, as we went into the pandemic, we did a little mindfulness class, and some of you hung in there with me and were disciplined enough to do that. But let's just jump into this, because it's a good exercise to help bring our focus to the present moment. You know, thoughts are part of everyone's human experience, and you don't need to push them away. That's when people often say, I don't meditate or do mindfulness because I have too many thoughts. Well, we all do, right? We just learn to work with them and to manage them. You don't need to push them away in order to practice. Learning to bring your mind back from its thoughts is the practice. But how do you let go of the thoughts once they've pulled you into them? This exercise offers one way to unhook yourself from those thoughts and simply just let them be. Without pushing the thoughts away or denying their presence, you can be aware of the thinking mind while remaining unattached. Settle into your seated posture. If you're still with me, you're going to do this with me, and just close your outer eyes. We're going to close our outer eyes for a few minutes and just notice the energy in your mind. Notice the energy in your body. Maybe something came up for you before we started this morning. Just notice the energy, where it's settling, where it's seated. Is it in your mind or somewhere in your body? As you come into a period of mindfulness practice, you may notice the energy of your day resting in some part, some compartment in your mind or some compartment in your body. The mind may be active. The body may feel worked up, or you might notice a bit of lingering anxiety. So we're going to unhook from those thoughts. I want you to think of a shaken snow globe. Just call that image to mind, a snow globe, and it's all shaken up with all that energy just swirling around and around. As you rest, the little snowflakes fall gently to the ground in your snow globe. So think of yourself as that snow globe, and every snowflake as one of your thoughts. In this way, just watch as each and every snowflake falls to the ground. Do not force yourself to calm down. Just let it happen slowly and organically. And you can come back and listen to this. After a minute or so, what you want to do is bring your attention to the breath in the body. Just notice it. Just choose one spot where the breath is felt easily. You're not controlling the breath in any way or trying to control it. You just notice it and feel it. It may be the center of the chest, the abdomen, the shoulders, maybe even the nostrils. Just observe the physical sensation of the body breathing. Observing the breath for a few minutes will bring the mind back when it wanders. And now stick with the snow globe visualization. And as thoughts begin to rise up, observe as they slowly settle back down. After a couple of minutes of focusing on the breath, open your awareness to include your thoughts and your general mental state. Just open to them. Instead of returning to the breath when the mind wanders, notice what the mind is doing. You may notice yourself planning, fantasizing, figuring out, or replaying past experiences. Whatever you observe the mind doing, let it be. When you recognize a thought, what happens? Try not to encourage the thought, but don't push it away either. Allow it to be and allow it to go on its own. See if you can watch the passing of the thought as it follows its natural trajectory and leaves the mind. Years ago, I would do this by letting my thoughts become the passing clouds, knowing that I could choose to deal with them later. And they would pass from the scenery of my mind, just like passing clouds in the sky. Another tool I used is I would place my thoughts in a basket in a flowing river and let them drift away, knowing that I could come back if I chose to do so and deal with them later, but watching them drift away. Then I would return to the breath and just patiently wait until another thought arises. Notice it, watch the thought, come back to the breath again. Continue with mindfulness of the breath and the thoughts. Notice when you're lost in thought or when the mind wanders for some time. And if self-judgment arises, notice that just as you would any other thought. You just notice it. You're not engaging with it. You can always return to the breath for a few moments to ground yourself back into the practice. Let everything settle in your snow globe and come back to your breath. Come back to here and now and let it be. And so it is. And there you go. There's a mindfulness exercise that you can come back to on our Facebook page or in the recording that I always put up the next day or in the next newsletter or post. So there you have it. What I'm going to do is say goodbye to the people looking in on social media. If you'd like to stay here in the Zoom room, feel free to stay here. Everyone looking in, other ministries, Unity of Pontiac, and those of you that join us regularly or even for the first time on social media, on YouTube, on Facebook, thanks for looking in. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, 9 a.m. Central Time. Know that we love you. We bless you. We appreciate you, and we behold the Christ in you. So it is, and so we let it be. Amen. All right.